Zaza. I am here in China, and I've been here in China for the past few weeks, doing an amazing tour. Y'all know that I love touring Asia, specifically China. My fans are amazing here. The shows have been great. I don't ever want to go home, but I must. And before I go home, though, I stopped by Mooer Pedals, the world headquarters here in Shenzhen, China, and I'm going to walk you through my pedal board that I'm using on tour here in China, and when I tour elsewhere in the world, I'll walk you through exactly what I'm using. I'll show you some of my little tricks to get my tones, and we're gonna have a good time. So let's do this. Okay, so let's go through my pedal board. In fact, let's look at the pedal board itself first. This is called a Mooer PB10, and it's actually really cool because you could actually stretch it out. If you wanted one long pedal board, you could put it together and it binds by this cool rubber thing right here. Or you could spread it out in an angular way and you have almost two sections on this pedal board. So I love it because I can have a straight pedal board, I can fold it, and I can have a standard configuration of a pedal board. Or I just think this is really cool because when you're standing on stage, it's like each foot has a different quadrant of the pedal board. I've never seen anything like it, and it's really great for when you're on stage and everything is separate like that. And it folds up really nice and you can travel with it. So let's go through the pedals as from right to left. The most important one of all, right, is the tuner. This is the Mooer Baby Tuner. It's very nice because, as you can see, it has a really nice big display. You can see it from far away on stage if you're blind like I am. And there's no mistaking exactly what note you're on. Real easy to read, real simple. Has different configurations for different tunings and everything like that. So we're good on that. That is the Mooer Baby Tuner. I'm going to bypass this for right now, and I'm going to come back to it. This next thing is a chorus pedal, the Ensemble King. I love it because, as with all the micro series with Mooer, they're just really small, they sound great, and I think it's such a waste for me to bring this big chorus pedal on the road when I just use it for one song. So the Ensemble King sounds really nice. Next one is the 90 Orange, and this is one of my favorite pedals because I'm a huge Van Halen fan, and of course Van Halen used an MXR Phase 90, and this has the exact same sound. Turn on. We have vintage mode and we have modern mode. I just keep it in vintage mode for that vintage Van Halen sound. Alright, you know where I was going with that. So, that's the 90 Orange. This next one is called the Juicer. This is my signature pedal. I'm really proud of this pedal. This is a low drive overdrive pedal, and it was based off of the DoD juice box. And what this is it just gives a little extra juice, a little extra hit on an amp. A lot of people try to use a distortion or an overdrive as the main gain sound. But normally what I'll do is I'll use the gained up amp and I'll just hit it a little bit just to kind of get a little bit more sustain, a little bit more power out of it. And that's exactly what the Juicer is great for. So we have some tone controls, a low and a high, obviously the level, and we have a juice, which is gain. So you can really use the pedal in different ways. Like if you want to hit the front end of the amp a little bit harder as maybe a clean overdrive, you can boost the level a little bit. If you want to function like I do, which is just like a little bit of a mild overdrive, you can back the level down a little bit and you can give it a little bit more gain or juice. So here is my amp is already gained up, has some crunch to it. Take the delay off. So here's what it sounds like. You can see what that gives. It gives it a richer, creamier sound. So even if I'm using some pick harmonics or some palm muting. I love it because it really makes my guitar come alive. It really adds a lot of vibrance. All right, moving on, we have next the Spark Series Overdrive. So what I like to do sometimes is, because this is a low gain overdrive, sometimes what I'll do is I'll use another overdrive into the front end of the amp to give a little bit more crunch and balls to it, and then I'll hit it on top of it as some spice with the juicer. So here's the amp. Nothing great to speak of, just a crunched up. Okay, here's with the Spark Overdrive. And what's great is if the amp lacks any sort of high end or definition, I can just dial that in with the high end on the tone right here. So I'm not really hitting the amp really hard, but you can hear that it gives the amp a little bit more definition, a little more punch. It really tightens up the sound. So combine this people always ask me why I like so much overdrive or gain, or why it's such a big part of my sound. And because I want the sustain when I use an overdrive or distortion, I don't want it to fuzz the note up, or I don't want it to make everything mushy and inarticulate. I really want it to just add sustain, so it's almost like a violin if I want it, where it just sustains and it's very vocal-like. So obviously that's working two different kinds of overdrives, and they are different kinds of overdrives as well. This is like a sweeter one, the juicer sweet, no pun intended, but this has a little bit more drive to it. So this is what I'll always put in front of the amp. I have the distortion as well. That's a great sound too. A little bit more of a ratty sound to it. Because when I tour, I always get a back line wherever I go. So if I'm overseas, the promoter will provide who knows what amplifier. I never know what I'm going to have. So I have a good combination of things to hit the front end of the amp with, so I'm always safe. 9 times out of 10, I'll use the overdrive and the juicer to get a really good overdriven tone. But sometimes some amps, the front end, like a distortion box better, and then I can work these two to see what works well with that. So it's good to have combinations, and the pedals are so small and they're so light, I could have different combinations, and if I use one night, that's great. If I don't, it doesn't take up any real space on my pedal board, so no matter what situation, I'm always covered. So here's the distortion again. Sounds different than the overdrive. That sounds different. between all these, I can get really any tone. Next up, we have the micro power, and these are powering all these pedals, and you see that's what the wire in between is. And then we have a Ryeko Pro, which is a great delay pedal. What's really nice is it has the tap tempo feature, so if I want, I can just tap it in. It has various types of delay, all kind of crazy things like low cut and high cut. It actually has a dry mix and a wet mix, not just one knob, but you really have a lot of control over that. So that's my pedal board, and this travels with me everywhere. And with all this, I could get basically any sound I need in any country through any amp. My guitars are always going to be carbon Zaza signature guitars. And as I was saying earlier, my amplifiers change from venue to bathroom, so I never really know as I'm on tour. Every night's a surprise to me too. But there it is. That's my Mooer pedal board. All right, I'd like to take you through the new Mooer wah that I love so much. This is called the Limulus. And one of the biggest problems we have as guitar players is the wah pedal is so huge and heavy and cumbersome and big, and you're flying, and you got to keep the weight down in your bags, and it's just a pain. And I've always looked for a solution for this problem, and this is the solution I've been waiting for. So this is the wah pedal, the Limulus, and first thing is when you get it, you think, well, how could I possibly maneuver that with my foot? Well, they have these cool little flanges that come right out, and now it's ready for your foot. So I think that's really cool. And then obviously when you go back and you pack up your pedal board, they fold in. It's the size of any other Mooer Micro Series pedal. First thing is, it triggers without, you don't have to kick it down like a conventional wah pedal. I think that's one of the coolest things. So as you'll see on the light on the side, on both sides, as soon as my foot touches these two sensors, or one of the two sensors, whatever the top or bottom, the pedal's on, and it's instantly off. So I think that's a cool thing. Also, it has some great effects because I think that's really cool. Has a nice curve, a nice throat to it. The throat or the curve is nice. It's a little on the top. And it's all in this little frame right here. So one of my absolute favorite Mooer pedals, because it really solves a problem that I know a million other guitar players at Tribal have, which is now you can have a small little compact pedal board with micro pedals, and you have a micro wah, but it certainly doesn't sound micro at all. So, the Limulus. I'd like to take you through my procedure as to how I get my tone with my pedals. I have a pretty simple tone. There's not a lot of crazy delay effects or crazy washy choruses or anything like that. I'm sort of a meat and potatoes sort of tone guy, where I want a nice crunch tone, I want a singing lead tone, and I want a little delay to kind of wash it all through. So let's take a look. If I just go right to my signature pedal, the juicer, we'll start with this. I'm using, today in the studio we have a Joyo amp, which sounds pretty good. It's giving me like a little crunch, but nothing that I can really play lead with. There's not a lot of cream to it. So I just set my juicer straight up, with just 12 o'clock just as a good starting point. Now what I'm looking for is I just want a little bit of added punch, a little bit of added sustain to it. So obviously I'm going to add a little more juice or gain to it. And actually, normally all my overdrive pedals that I use, no matter what, I always set them maybe around 2, 3 o'clock, and it always just works, and I've done it ever since I started playing, so that's sort of my starting point. So even just that. You can hear it just gives me a little bit more sustain, a little more excitement with it. So aside from just overdriving the amp and giving it more gain, I actually want to hit the front end a little harder too. So what I'm going to do is I always kick that level up a little bit. So we added some gain, we added some kick to the front end of the amp, so it's going to overdrive the amp itself. So here's the difference. And you can hear what a big difference just this and a little level makes. I mean, a little more level out there. Because now, whenever I do any pick harmonics or any palm muting, it's really going to pop. So here's the difference. And it just stops. So a lot of times when I have a lead tone and I really want to get some articulation to it, a lot of times with a lot of overdrive, and I use a lot of overdrive simply because I want the sustain of like what a violin would have. So if I want to really get some singing, emotional, something. With the juicer, it almost goes into a little bit of feedback as I'm vibratoing the note. Two things. One, I'm hitting a little bit of pick harmonic in there to bring that out. So between a little pick harmonic and the juicer, you're really hearing a little bit of that feedback. And the amp is really low. There's no crazy volume, so I'm certainly not getting any kind of feedback from the amp. So to even bring that out a little bit more, and we're really talking about subtle shades of tone, where I don't want to paint with a real big brush on this. I want to just add little shades of effect in here, so it's just enhancing little nuances of tone. So I'm just going to bring the high end up a little bit, so it's really going to just hear even that little bit from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, it even made it sustain a little bit more. So I'm just going to add a little low to just a little more punch. So really, that's basically always my setting, is I just juice the low and the high a little bit to kind of bring in a little more harmonic content. Level goes up just a little bit just to hit the amp. And 2, 3 o'clock sometimes, I'm hitting something, my foot will hit it, and it just sounds great. It doesn't matter what it's at. And that's the beauty about the juicer, is that it just sounds good. It just, you could bring it on a low gain setting. Again, we're talking about subtle shades. Now, I don't use this on a clean amp. I use it on an already gained up amp. So you know, you're actually just after a little you always hear it really good when you vibrato, and it slips into that feedback. One of my favorite things. So set that there. The juicer, that's how I'll dial that in. When I use an overdrive like the Spark Overdrive with an amp and maybe in conjunction with the juicer, I'm looking for a little definition on this. So if here's the tone without. Little muddy at the amp. And you can hear that tightens the sound up really a lot. And I don't have a lot of drive on, so there's basically no drive on the pedal. And I basically just back it off just a little bit. Now, one thing that I can tell that you can't tell by watching this is it's a feel difference too. If you add a little bit more gain or overdrive in there, definitely the guitar reacts differently that you may not be able to hear just by watching the video here. But anyway, also to bring in some definition, I'll bring in some tone. And again, very subtle, but it really does bring in a little bit more definition. Volume, just enough where it's equal unity and maybe a little bit more. So again, it hits the front end of the amp, and there's always an interaction and a marriage between pedals and amps, and it's how things interact with each other. So if I have an overdrive, I want it to hit the amp a certain way, and then if I cascade another overdrive into this overdrive, it's really a marriage, a combination of 3 different ingredients. Of course, you add in your volume control if you back it down or you put it on 10. So it's all these different elements, and again, I keep coming back to it's subtle shades of tone that each thing imparts. There's not a be-all, end-all part in the chain. They all work together. So anyway, no delay. Kind of sharpened it up a little bit. All right, so let's talk about the icing on the cake with the delay. As I said earlier, I don't have a lot of crazy delays or this or that. I just wanted something to round it out, to give it a nice smooth presentation. And I'm using the Rico Pro on this. So turn it on. And again, there's all kind of different patches that you can get on this pedal. I'm using the most basic of basic digital delay. I don't need it to modulate on the delays. I don't need it to go lo-fi on me or anything like that. I just want to fill the notes in a little bit. So I don't even know the exact time I use. It's always just like that. Have that amount of feedback, maybe 3-4 feedbacks. Fades out right there. Anything more, I think it gets all clogged and congested, especially if you're overdriving everything and you're playing fast. It can get really messy really fast. So in terms of to give a cooking analogy, if you're cooking, you add a little bit of spice. You don't have to overload whatever you're making with spice. Same thing for delay. Lately I've been actually playing a lot dry on tour because I can just, with the different monitoring situations, I can hear a little bit better when there's no delay. But of course on a song like Alright, I definitely need to have some So it's kind of running into each other. So basically, that's how I put together the tone. Also, one of the big things is the 90 orange brings in a nice little piece to the puzzle too. So talked about keeping it real musical and kind of just being real subtle, but the 90 orange adds a nice. And anyone that knows me knows I'm a huge early Eddie Van Halen fan. It changed my life when I heard Van Halen 1, and of course I've always used a phaser in conjunction with it. So I kind of just try to emulate the wave of an old MXR Phase 90. If it passes the Eddie test, it's good enough for me. So, there you go. Hope you enjoyed it. And I hope it gave you a little bit of insight into how I tweak and dial in everything. So, the moment I heard Van Halen 1, I knew that I was going to be playing guitar for the rest of my life. You know, I always tell the story that I was in cruising around in a buddy of mine's car. His older brother was driving, and of course they had 8 tracks at the time. And he puts in Van Halen 1 and Running with the Devil started. And and then that next chord, right there when I heard that, it literally changed my life. I always laugh like, you know, the angels sang to me, and that was it. I wanted to become a guitar player from that point on. All I cared about was actually just playing guitar. So in school, when I'd have to, you know, be studying or whatever, I'd have my folder and I'd look like I was, you know, looking at the teacher and, you know, paying attention. Of course, I had like Guitar Player magazine, you know, behind my folder, or I had a horrible phone soliciting job for basic waterproofing. I'd be on the phone talking to someone about, you know, how they should have their basement inspected because it's leaking water, and I'd have like a Guitar Player magazine, and I was looking at all the old MXR pedals that I was going to buy with the money from this job that I hated. And so everyone was asking me how I got from there to actually living my dream of playing and touring and doing what I do. And my answer is I really don't know, because all I did was stay the course. And by staying the course, I mean I just did what I wanted to do all the time. Like, I made guitar the most important thing for me. I made it the priority, and it came above social life. It came above doing other things, because it's all I really ever wanted to do. So, you know, I'd come home from school, play guitar all day, and on the weekends I'd stay in and work out Van Halen records on, you know, maybe it was on 33, and I started a record player on 16, and, you know, it was all I ever wanted to do. And then I would just get in bands and break up the band and start a new band. And so finally it came to where I decided, no, I better get serious about this. And I went to school for classical guitar for 3 years. And I learned a lot of nice pieces, and I learned, you know, to be legitimate with the guitar. But I just always wanted to rock. I just always wanted to play Van Halen tunes and improvise and rock out and turn my amp loud and everything like that. So really, my greatest piece of advice to anyone is no one can tell you that you can't do something in your life, and no one can tell you that you can't be a guitar player or you can't be whatever you want to be. You just have to follow your own instinct and follow your own compass and do exactly what it is you want to do. So, and that means failing a lot, that means making a lot of sacrifice, that means just really dedicating yourself to the art of whatever it is you're doing. In my case, it was music, and a lot of my friends, it was music. And I think at the end of the day, it's just important that you are happy and that you are living the life you want to live. So for me, I always wanted to play guitar and travel the world, and that's what I'm doing now. So I feel very fortunate to it, and that's what I view as success. So I guess it's just a matter of staying true to yourself, staying serious, and you have to put the work in, but you really can achieve anything.